in this neck of the woods, do your shopping online. And we will just get started in a few minutes. For those of you who are on now, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to use the chat feature, which we will of course mention again. But the chat feature is live, and we do have our friends behind the scenes helping us. And we should be able to communicate with you via the chat. Garrett, I see you. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you doing?
Oh, I am very happy to be indoors on a cold day and very happy to be here with all of you. How's it going where you are? Where are you?
Oh, well, I'm in Hackensack, New Jersey, just outside of the city, with a pretty good view of complete whiteout. So I heard that there was a shutdown and state of emergency in New York City. So I hope everyone was able to get indoors quickly if they did attempt to get to work today. Sounds like a mess.
It's we're pretty good with the snow plow here, but to your point, yes, I hope that everybody is working from home today. And as we have more people signing on, we will be starting in just about 2 minutes. Libby, are you able to see that chat feature? Just want to make sure that you see that.
Yes, thank you.
Perfect.
And Libby, are you enjoying the sunshine? Are you in North Carolina or South Carolina?
You know what? I'm actually in Sag Harbor. So yeah, our office is in New York City and we're usually just there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But I don't know that I'll be in the city this week. I think I'm going to stay out here in snowy Sag Harbor.
I love Sag Harbor. I'm very familiar with it. I have family out there.
Oh,
I'm very close to you, Libby. I'm in West Hampton. So
all right, we're having the same view.
Yes, same white trees at the moment and everywhere.
We are just getting started. Oh, Linda's here too. I see Linda. How are you, Linda?
I am great. Over here in Pittsburgh, I've already lived through what you're living through today, but I don't want to alarm you. It's continuing. We're still getting more snow after 8 inches on the ground. So it's been pretty crazy for the last 24 hours.
Oh, well, it looks like we are all just going to be in for what we're in for, but it looks like we've got everybody online right now. So I think that we're going to go ahead and start our conversation. Home trends in sustainability for 2021 with IFDA. And with that, everybody, I'm going to get started. But I'm going to take a sip of water first. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Amy Lowenberg, Relations and Partnership Development Manager at New York Now. And I'd like to welcome you all to today's live digital talk, Emerging Trends in Sustainability for 2021 with the IFDA. How lucky we are to have the very talented Garrett Johnson with us. But before I introduce her and her talented panel, let me share that today's live digital talk is being recorded and will be available on demand exclusively in the New York Now digital market. If at any time you should need technical assistance, please use the chat feature and we'll assist you right away. You can also use that feature to ask questions. If there's time at the end of our talk, we will do our best to answer them. And if we cannot, we will be sure to email you with a response post-digital market. It is now my honor to introduce you to Garrett Johnson. Garrett is a creative strategist and visual designer at Garrett Designs with over a decade of brand development expertise across fashion, interiors, consumer insights, and lifestyle industries. As an independent consultant, Garrett informs future-facing projects that support brand growth with international, private, and corporate clients. Garrett's ability to connect different ideas, people, and industries has been her greatest contribution to the IFDA board and community. She is also the 2018 recipient of the IFDA-EF Valerie Moran Grant, awarded for her professional research of Future Studies, excuse me, and Urban Design in Copenhagen, Denmark. And now let me introduce our wonderful panel. As the Executive Vice President of the Hardwoods Manufacturers Association, HMA, Linda Jovanovic oversees all aspects and activities of the trade association's member services, meeting planning, and all association financial management responsibilities. She also manages the American Hardwood Information Center, a service of the HMA, and the authoritative resource for consumer and professionals seeking information about American hardwoods. Coming from a marketing background, she excels in product promotion, is passionate about her work, and has the vision necessary to keep American hardwood industry vibrant. Project work includes television segments, media, architect, designer, learning tours, continuing education learning units, show homes, and other media relation activities. And we also have Libby Langdon. Libby is an interior designer, author, product designer, and makeover television personality, and the creative force behind the New York City-based design firm Libby Interiors, Inc. She is known for her easy, elegant, everyday style, as well as her licensed home furnishing collections, lighting for Christorama, rugs for Cass, artwork for Paragon, and a complete home collection of upholstery and case goods for Fairfield Chair Company. Her interior designs and products have been featured in magazines, including Architectural Digest, House Beautiful, and Traditional Home. Langdon has been a regular design expert on NBC's Today Show, HGTV's Small Space, Big Style, The View, The Rachel Ray Show, and she travels the country presenting her design seminars to consumers, designers, and retailers about all things design. And rounding out our panel, we have Ivan Hull. Ivan is the owner and creator of Acorn Export Inc. and has been working with leading designers and artisans from around the world, creating products for the US market for 4 decades. His current company is Province Platters, which was born about 11 years ago during a very enjoyable jaunt in the South Australian wine country. He found himself standing in a wine cellar where they not only pour wine, but serve numerous cheese and charcuterie. Leaning against the wall was a disowned head of an old French oak wine barrel that someone had cleverly nailed a couple of scraps of wood to hold it together and gave the impression of a very rustic looking cheese platter. Flash forward to January 2010, he was able to introduce Province Platters at the New York International Gift Fair, and the fact that it was regenerated from previously utilized French oak wine barrels and iron handles forged the old-fashioned way. They found their way into many exclusive stores and businesses, including Neiman Marcus, ABC Home, and then Barney's, to name a few. Ivan's platters are truly green products. And now that we know about our panel, Garrett, I say the floor is yours. You need to unmute yourself and the floor is then yours.
Thank you so much, Amy, especially for asking me to unmute myself. It's a pleasure to be here. The IFDA has always existed to support to the trade, awareness, career advancement, and education. And I'm delighted to be here on this panel discussing sustainability with a manufacturer, a designer, and a product wholesaler. It's an enormous perspective to be able to give to something that we've been talking about for quite a long time, but now is truly something that our country is activating. So I'm happy to be hosting this. And I wanted to start with Linda. Tell us a little bit about your manufacturing hardwood information and how you build sustainable practices and energy efficiency into your process.
Hi all, good to be here. Thank you so much. Thank you, Garrett. The American Hardwood Information Center seeks to educate consumers, prosumers alike on the environmental benefits of hardwood and obviously the importance of the material selection in your sustainable design. We typically get a pretty bad rap that, oh my God, you're the people out cutting down the trees. Well, that is necessarily not true. You need to have trees harvested responsibly so that they continue to grow. Today, in the last 50 years. There's 131% more forest land in the United States than there was. We are actually not using wood products enough. For a carbon sink, for a forest to be healthy, you want young, healthy trees. The older a tree gets, the less it will store carbon. So we practice through the USDA, the United States Forest Service, we practice sustainable harvesting. We encourage people to use solid wood products and American hardwood products. They're all legally sourced. They're very easy to come by. There are lots of regulations for products made from American hardwoods and what covers them, the VOC. There can be no VOC finishes anymore through the government. The government has agreed to source American hardwoods in all of their federal buildings.
Linda,
it's just, yes.
Can we reverse on that? I mean, there you have quite a few interesting points here, and I wanted to get to all of them and shed some light on that here. You mentioned governments using wood in sustainable practices in the buildings and also wellness, and also mentioned that some people do believe this is not a sustainable practice to cut down wood. It is a renewable resource, and it is something that we can recycle, which is a great point that you made. Can you tell us a little bit more about the wellness aspect of having wood in the home environment?
Well, the National Association of Asthma has found that if you can replace carpeting with wood in your home, you will have such a better air quality in your home just because of the breathing. There's no mites, there's no allergens. It's much healthier for you. I'm not here to talk negatively about any products. There's a lot of flooring products that contain a lot of VOC finishes in them, a lot of glues and composites, which are off-gassing, which are not user-friendly typically. And also there's been studies done that, and this is especially true in hospital areas, that having the look of nature and the feel of nature around people is a very calming effect and a nurturing effect, and make people just healthier and feel better and heal faster. So
that's an amazing point to make, because we talked about, one of our topics is biophilia in the environment.
Right.
And truly this desire to connect with nature has been another conversation and even a trend, even outside of the home, bringing that indoors. How do you feel about the connection for wellness in these spaces? Are there statistics to say on these hospitals that have wood in the environment where they've had substantial improvements of people's health?
They claim that, yes, there are studies. They claim it's a less lengthy time to heal. They feel that in long-term care, people are just calmer. It's just a natural connection to the outdoors, and they do much better in that type of an environment. There are studies on that. The USDA does studies on that. It's just really interesting. And I mean, I've been at this for 23 years, so it's ingrained in my mind and in my manner, but it's just so new to most people. They really don't understand it or even know about the true feelings about having wood or any natural products in your environment. Another really unique feature is, if you look at it's on one of the other slides, but if you look at the cut of a log and you see the wood rings in it, it's every tree is a unique source. So it's much like your thumbprint or your fingerprint. Nobody has another thumbprint like you. If you source a product like that in your home, it's truly unique. Nobody else will ever have that exact same product. So in comparison to putting a laminate floor down where it's paper glued on top of some kind of an backing, that's all going to be the same. Every one of those sheets will be exactly the same, but that flooring or that piece of furniture in your home will be unique to you and your style. It's something you chose because nobody else will have the exact same piece.
Well, that's an interesting indication to make. I mean, it also brings in some uniqueness to the design of it. And as you mentioned before, how toxic it can be to have heavy carpeting in the home, especially long-term. And also the recyclability of wood floors. Once you do dig out that flooring, you can use it to other things. I even have actually a picture frame made from the flooring of my childhood home that my brother made for us. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to replicate and reuse these things into historic things. And Ivan will speak to that, I'm sure, later. But to your point about energy efficiency as well, can you tell us just a little bit about the emissions and things like that, and how you're regulating or even understanding that and being more efficient in wood manufacturing as opposed to, say, carpets or linoleum flooring and more synthetic substitutes?
So as far as manufacturing goes, there is lots of studies done by a lot of different groups out there, and the carbon emissions that it takes to produce a ton of wood is lower than any other product out there, lower than steel, glass, concrete, brick. The other thing that's really unique about wood, if you remember back to 6th grade science and photosynthesis, growing out in the forest, a healthy tree, 49% of that tree and that trunk is stored carbon. Trees store carbon, and they store carbon to grow their branches, but they emit oxygen, which we obviously all need to live there. And that tree will store that product when it goes into, or the carbon when it goes into a new product. So the products in your home that are solid wood, they're storing carbon. 49% are stored carbon. There really isn't too many other building materials out there that can tout that same fact. So as a resource, it's very important to our flooring manufacturers in our industry that they continue to use low, very low, if not totally non-VOC covers on their finishes. That's all regulated by the government. So they have to be very careful with that.
Interesting. And we'll get back to that a little bit. I want to talk a little bit more about government regulations, local codes, and how that has been impacting your business. I want to shoot some questions over to Libby, though, too. In using some of these materials, how are you as a designer leveraging things like wood and natural materials in the design spaces, and even in your licensed and unlicensed intellectual products?
Yeah, it's incredibly important these days, because I feel like people are now asking the question, what's it made of? And I'm on the board of the Sustainable Furnishings Council, and that's been a campaign for us for a few years. And I feel like it's really coming to the forefront now. So it's not also that I'm just a proponent for things that are, sustainable and harvested, correctly, like wood and things like that. But the clients are starting to ask about it. They're worried. What are we bringing into their homes? How is it going to affect their family's health, how they're living in the space? And so I think the exciting thing that we've seen in the last few years is that it's become more of a conversation instead of a designer saying, this is what you should use. So I think as a designer and somebody working in the field, it's up to me to help educate the consumer, but be able to bring them product that is going to be eco-friendly, and very much like what Linda is saying. I mean, there's nothing worse than bringing in a cabinet or a buffet, and 3 weeks after the clients had it, they said, I have no idea what this smell is, but every time I open it, it smells horrible. I don't want to put any of my things inside. So one of the best things you can do is ask your manufacturers who you're buying from, what is it made of? And are you recycling? Are you recycling foam? Where are you getting this product? And that's a really important thing for us right now to be able to communicate to our clients. And wood, obviously, for me, with my product, for my furniture collection in Fairfield, that's all made in North Carolina. And one of the things that they really work on is also, live edge has become a really popular look in furniture in the last few years. And I think that's kind of exciting because it's an aesthetic, it's a look, and it's become very popular because people are finding how to juxtapose natural elements like live edge or pieces like that and pair them with lucite or things that can have a much more contemporary look. So I think it's a really exciting time to see what's happening and the product that's available and what we can offer to our clients. But I think it's really important. You do have to know the messaging. You have to really be aware of the story of the product. So that's more important now than ever before.
Absolutely. And I think you do such a tremendously great job of doing that. And even taking some of these products and bringing them into spaces in the different ways that your clients ask you to. So, I mean, what doesn't necessarily have to be a masculine element? It can be very feminine. But you made two really brilliant points just now, back to the health piece of it and emissions. It is so important. I feel like we've learned through history that our spaces often make us sick and we didn't even know it was making us sick. In fact, I myself had asthma for about 15 years, and then suddenly it went away. And I really do think it was because I changed my environment. We had heavy carpeting for many years. Now we had wood floors, things like that. So it's something that we think is permanently affecting us that has nothing to do with our environment, but it truly can be something we change and something we get better from. So changing our environment can truly improve our health. It's amazing. I'm really curious to hear what materials you particularly seek to use and why. You mentioned the raw edge, which is a beautiful aesthetic to bring into any space. What else would you list among those?
I mean, I think what we're looking for too now is a big challenge is clients are wanting performance fabrics and, stain repellent, they want their kids to be able to have spaghetti on it or friends who drink red wine. And so we are designing for real life, but a thing that has been a real wonderful advancement in the last 3 years is there's so many mills in the United States, a lot of them in North Carolina, that are creating performance fabrics, but they're doing it with wonderful yarn construction. They're not using it with the chemicals. They're not putting these toxic backings on them. So I think that's a huge advancement for us in that people want a linen-y look. They want texture, but it's also got to work for the way they're going to live in their homes. So it's finding that balance of how do you create something that's very stylish, but it's also got to be really functional. And I really do salute so many of the mills and fabric manufacturers for the way they're recycling yarns, using new technology and finding a way to really make performance fabric perform, but also sustainable and not full of chemicals that are going to make us sick in our own homes.
Amazing. So that's really interesting. So we still have this desire for plushness in our lives, for soft pieces and textiles. And then also being very aware of how much consumption can go into that, the carbon footprint of especially water when you're creating print textiles and dyeing textiles and even leathers and things like that, which generally can be sustainably created, but we really have to be aware of the chemical and the water consumption in that. Are you very aware of or choose to only work with manufacturers who have certain codes and align with those codes? How do you ensure that you're delivering the most energy efficient products?
It's hard. I feel like there are a lot of manufacturers that are still kind of catching up at this point. So we're not able to exclusively only work with manufacturers that have a sort of eco-minded facility or operation or manufacturing. But I do think there's a way that you can mix and match. And I think the other thing that's very important, and you talked about it a little bit about the water consumption, and we did with the Sustainable Furnishings Council this past year, we started a new initiative called Just One Thing. And I think what's very important about that is I think a lot of times people hear eco-friendly or sustainable and they worry, it's too much. I'm never going to be able to do enough. It's going to cost me too much to change the way I manufacture my product. But what's very, very important is that these days we become more inclusive and we find manufacturers that want to make a difference. They know it might take a little while to do it, but it is true. If you think about it, and all of us did just one thing, we would make such a huge difference. And so I feel like Inclusivity is very important right now. Transparency is very important. If people aren't sure where to start, there are things we have with the Sustainable Furnishings Council. You can go on Sustainable Furnishings Council, and if you're looking for a manufacturer that makes sustainable wood furniture, or you're able to see what they call the Green Leaders Wood Scorecard. So there are ways that you can use a Sustainable Furnishings Council if you're looking for a manufacturer that has a wonderful recycling program, or they have a very small water footprint of what they use. You're able to really go in and find companies that are eco-friendly. So I do think that's a great resource for designers and also consumers to go in and look and see if they can find things that can help them improve the way they're going to live in their homes and their families are going to live in their homes. But I do think the Sustainable Furnishings Council is a wonderful resource. But no, I can't exclusively only work with those companies, but boy, we sure do try to.
Right. I think that's an amazing thing you point out, the just one thing, and in alignment with the Sustainable Council, to at least make the effort to see where you can add that layer into your home, and then where you have to make that compromise, make that meaningful until we have a better substitute. Speaking of just one thing, I want to circle back with you, Libby, again in a minute, but Ivan has just one thing that's incredibly exciting. It involves some of my favorite things, wine and cheese. Tell us a little bit about your wholesale business and how you came to manufacture these, and then how you continue to source them. I mean, it's a great idea to begin with, but when you run out of supply, how do you keep that amazing business going?
Well, I think Ms. Lowenberg at the beginning mentioned that where I found the product, originally South Australian wine country, in a cave, and it was a very rustic piece of wood. The supply of wine barrels have to be 200 years old by French law, the tree, the oak tree. And this is referencing Linda's comments about hardwood. The French are not allowed to cut it down until it's 200 years old. Most of the wine barrels around nowadays were around when Napoleon Bonaparte rode through some of these forests, to give you an idea how old they are, which is a wonderful thing as far as sustainability goes. And then they're cured for 10 years and dried, and then they finally become a wine barrel, and then they use for about 4 seasons, which really translates to 4 years. So they used to be thrown out, basically. Some would be used as planters, where they would cut the barrel in half. This is in the European market. Very little use here for them. It's changed drastically in the last 10 years. Every rum company or everyone wants to age their liquors now in old wine barrels, because they can put on the label that this has been aged in French oak or American oak. And it's made our job a little bit harder to find them. We used to be able to buy wine barrels from Napa quite inexpensively, and it has increased the price a little bit, but it's still. And second, I was reading earlier, wine barrel production is increasing 50% between now and 2027. So it's a lot of wine barrels coming into the market. So I think using wood, and again, what Linda said earlier, when there's so much reused wood now, you take old warehouses and all that used to be all burnt, and nowadays it's not. It's making flooring. People use it to rebuild homes. And it's pretty much what we're doing with, Provence platters, taking the tops of the barrels, we completely rebuild them. And we also use the sides of the barrels, which we make candelabras, and we make beautiful fruit bowls out of them. So we use every part of the barrel, except the iron hoop, and that we don't use that. We use beeswax. Again, that's an organic product, totally sustainable, to finish the wood, which is a wonderful product. And in fact, we give a little bottle of this with each platter that the ultimate consumer can use to take care of that wood. if you look after hardwoods, particularly, they last forever. There's floors you'll see that are 200 years old, as long as you take good care of them.
I love that. And I love that. And I think that heritage is coming back too. Not too long ago, one of the trends was that young people didn't want to inherit furniture and bring that into their environment because they moved so much and generally knew that they'd be changing their lifestyles rather often. I think now that that is shifting, and you guys tell me, you're out in the world and you're in the market, especially you, Libby, what are customers asking for in these aspects of bringing things into their home? Are they looking more for heritage products, for repurposed products? What are you seeing as a client service?
You know what I'm seeing is very much to Ivan's point and Linda's point. We've seen that modern farmhouse style has been around from Magnolia Home and Fixer Upper and HGTV. We are still seeing that trend. It is still so strong right now, the modern farmhouse, and that lends itself very much to that reclaimed look, but a more contemporary take on it. So I think people are finding ways to have something that has a patina and has some personality and some style, but they're also finding ways to reimagine it in a fresh new design style. And I think that's really exciting. I think also people are feeling like when we used to have design rules, like you can't mix brass and silver and you know, everything's got to be the same. I feel like there's a looseness now and just kind of an ease to design where people are feeling like there are no rules and we can curate our own spaces and really create environments and rooms that speak to us. And I do feel finding ways to use reclaimed things. Also, everybody loves a good story, right? We love a good story. We love that Ivan is making these gorgeous platters from cool wine barrels. So I think that element also is a really, really fun sort of aspect that people are really enjoying, having a story or products in their homes that have a story.
Totally. And like you said, mixing the new with the old. So that, I mean, that brings me back at what Ivan said about there being an increase in wine consumption. I mean, that's a curious point too. I mean, when we're recycling products, we can often worry about the supply chain ending and then you have to kind of invent a new product. Ivan, why are there an increase in wine barrels? And do you see this being a sustainable business model, or do you think you'll be moving into a different form of material to repurpose later on?
Well, I wish I could say it was because of the sales of Provence platters, that the increase of wine barrels, but it's not that. I think more people are drinking wine, and which is true, especially the last year. And I think also the fact that many spirit companies are using these barrels. So there's an immediate, it used to be $1,800 is a good wine barrel for a winemaker. And it used to basically be at the end of its life and have no value, and that's changed. So I think that's one of the reasons. And further, you know, about 20 years ago, they brought out plastic cutting boards made of that, I can't remember the name of the material. And talking about the wellness and health, they're not really that good to use. They harbor germs, and way better to use wood. This is scientific studies that state that wood is the best thing to cut on, eat off.
Definitely. I noticed I had a plastic one years ago and it warped way faster than my new wood block one. Well, I wouldn't say it's new, but it stayed a block and I've used it for a very long time.
Right.
Good,
And
good point on.
So I see an image of the champagne cork stool up. I don't know if it's an appropriate time to talk about.
Absolutely. I was just going to say, tell us about these amazing stools.
Yeah, that's one of our second products. And this is also to do with wine. I love cheese and wine, obviously. And they're made in Portugal because it's the cork capital of the world. And they're all used corks, wine and champagne, millions of them. And they recycle them. They crumble them in these big machines, hydraulically compress them into a block that weighs about 15 pounds. And then they get turned into this shape of a giant whimsical champagne cork that weighs about 13 pounds. It's solid. And it's what a great use, and so all those corks really went to dumps. There was no use for them. No one could find it, except people would keep them in their houses in goldfish bowls and
I
stuff.
was gonna say, I mean, I've
Oh,
collected
you're
them.
guilty of that, right?
Yeah, I've seen people with giant bar kind of decor of them, but it would be so cool also to just kind of send them off and get your own sort of memory piece stool made out of your favorite, the corks of your life, all those moments that you celebrated.
Of your last 10 years of drinking habits, right?
Right, or just 2020.
Oh, okay. Very small. Small.
It depends who we are.
It's a wonderful product, though. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, very beautiful. I love it. So where do you see this going beyond? Do you see, repurposing other materials, or how do you see this projecting?
For my own business, you mean?
Yeah.
At the moment, not, but I've looked at other woods from old piers, and some of them are a bit unstable. So you've got to be careful when you use old wood, you've got to be careful that it's going to retain its integrity as far as not warping too much, etc., etc. So, but always open to ideas, and we're trying to find more uses for the wine barrel wood, the French and American oak that mainly comes from Missouri, and I think there's a lot of potential uses for that. But
Go ahead.
Sorry, we really should use repurposed wood. It's the most wonderful material. Because when most cheese boards, platters at 99% or 95%, trees are being cut down. And in some cases, that's fine, where it is done responsibly, like Linda said. There's other cases where it's not, I think, as careful as it could be. So when you can make something repurposed out of wood, it's a wonderful thing to do.
Well, I think that's an excellent point. And to go back to Linda on that, Linda, how is your organization kind of helping people find these resources and look to repurposed wood as a manufacturing tool rather than cutting down additional trees?
Well, that's a very good question, because my members are obviously all sawmills. So they want sales to increase. Now, I can tell you, to go along with what Ivan said, white oak is typically used for American white oak in wine barrels here. And the price of American white oak is through the roof. Most of my mills, they don't even, and white oak is typically sourced in finished product way quicker than red oak for some reason. I think people imagine that it's called red oak because it's red. It's really not it. It's because of the red that the trees show in the fall. That's how it gets that type of species name. But the white oak that is usually most what you see for furniture is totally being sold for wine barrels right now. I mean, they cannot cut enough of it to get it for the wine barrels. But how my members would look at it is, if you would put a new hardwood floor in your home, I built a home 3 years ago. I have gorgeous 7-inch wide white oak floors through my floor. I should never consider covering those with anything else or ripping them out. I can sand them, I can stencil them, I can stain them different colors, you can paint them different colors. So when I go into these home makeover shows and they want to rip out a floor that's been in there, the Monticello, it has the same floors like Ivan said, I think 200 years ago. Those are the same floors that are in there that Thomas Jefferson put in there. We should not be. That is like the worst environmental thing we can do in a home we live in or in our surroundings.
Yeah, that sounds devastating. I'm sure, Libby, can you tell us a little bit about that? Have you ever had a client who really wanted something that you strongly recommended against, such as beautiful floors or a historic element to the home that they just wanted to get rid of?
Yes. And what I find is a lot of times if somebody wants to rip out their existing floors, it's because they want a different finish and they can't imagine that the existing floors that they're living with that might have some gold stain that they hate, and they just cannot have the vision to see, no, we could you could bleach it. It could be gray. It can still have the look of, this vinyl plank flooring or whatever it is that they want to use. So at that point, it really is about educating them and letting them know we can take what you have and we can make it fabulous. It can have the exact look that you want. And it is true. Sometimes there are processes with wood to get a certain finish or a color or a stain that you want. It's multi-plot layers. It's a multi-process step. Or a multi-step process. But at the end of the day, most times people will go there with me and say, okay, we get it. We just thought it would be easier to rip it out. And so it is educating them and letting them know we can give them the look that they want and we can use their existing flooring for sure. It's just, they don't have the imagination to see how it could get there.
Right. And I think you're absolutely right there. A lot of times, and I mean, this is just kind of typical, the consumer knows what they want to change, but they don't necessarily know what the options are. And our job as professionals is to educate them on what the options are, and that sometimes it's more important to find out what you want to achieve than necessarily name the method in which you're going to do that. And that's why we hire designers to really solve the problems we're trying to get to, instead of maybe selling ourselves short in something that we're just not aware has a better solution.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I tell everybody, I think as an interior designer, I'm a good listener first, I'm a problem solver second, and third, I'm a designer.
Love it. Love it. And that's what you have to be. In order to create great design, you really have to be able to solve problems. And the only way to solve problems is to truly listen to what is going on in the consumer's life. And a lot of times they are actually talking about something where the actual problem is hidden. And that's exactly what we do. So we've talked a lot about wood, but I'm curious about other codes too. I know at the beginning of last year, just before shutdown, New York City itself was already aggressively pursuing certain green enactments in codes, especially in commercial buildings. They were discussing it at Build New York City. And then after COVID shutdown happened, a lot of those initiatives in the US kind of got pulled back on a little bit. But other countries in the world have been doubling down on that, such as Scandinavian countries, Denmark, Norway, and they're kind of showing us and leading us that we can achieve these things. What codes are you seeing going beyond 2021 that are going to be vital to sustainability, especially in urban spaces?
Well, I think, what we're seeing for sure, water is becoming a really big hot button. And I think for a good reason. And so I think in code, especially in home building, water usage and how to sort of corral that is going to be a really important thing that we're going to see. And we're going to also see that as a trend with plumbing manufacturers, and very high-end luxury plumbing manufacturers are going to have to start sort of reaching these different points on how to really maintain and keep water flow to not just have it, go sort of full bore. And then for code also, I would say in urban areas, there is the electricity and, ways to sort of make that more automated. And I think when in this day and age, when you can say, hey, Alexa, turn off my lamps, or tell your little Echo Dot to turn off your outdoor lighting, that kind of voice recognition, I think, is going to become something we're going to see used much more in urban areas, commercial areas, and ways to sort of help harness electricity. And we've already got people doing it in their homes with Nest and these kinds of things, and ways to control your heating and your lighting and that kind of thing. But I do think some of those innovations are now going to start to become code. And so I think it's a little bit of the building association starting to catch up with where technology can take us and how it can help us, conserving everything. So that's something really important. Another thing that I think we're going to see more and more of as far as regulation is, let's face it, I don't know about you guys, but I can drive down our street and see a million Amazon boxes on people's doorsteps. It's just gotten crazy. So I think there should be some kind of regulation about shipping and delivery. If you can go to the grocery store and you can buy all of your home cleaning products, do that instead of ordering it on Amazon, having the shipping, the emissions, the car that's driving it, the delivery person, and then all that waste. It's just, that's gotten really crazy. And I think businesses are going to start to have to find a way to do more than let's just all order everything online. So I think they're going to start to see some regulations about that, at least in New York City. I'm sure we will.
Yeah, and you made 3 great points there, both on water and energy, and how that is going to be changing in these urban commercial buildings that are residential, but also trickling into the home as individuals are making these choices. And it's enabled through technology and voice activated systems and the smart home devices that we're all going to be embracing very soon. But yeah, I really want to push that idea that you mentioned, the packaging and shipping and receiving. Oh my God, so much waste in that industry. And we have a wholesaler and the manufacturer. What is your perception on, and how are you improving upon shipping and receiving and logistics? I mean, is that something that's important to your business? Is it something you're looking at, or is it a kind of one of those wicked problems that we still just haven't been able to sort out? Linda, let's start with you.
Well, my packaging really is a tied log on a back of a semi tractor, and then the boards are shipped the same way too. So until you get into the flooring and the cabinetry and secondary manufacturers, that's when they're wrapped in cardboard. I think that goes with what Libby said. You order something from Amazon, you order 3 things, they come in 3 different packaging. I mean, that alone is ridiculous. It's like, why didn't it come in one box? I don't get that. But we don't really, our packaging isn't that way, but there's a lot, this is totally off the wall, but there's a lot of regulations for our industry on how much weight we can ship over roads. So there's times where in some states we need to take 2 semi-trailers of loads, where other states you only need 1, and that does add up. That's emissions. It's waste, but it's for safety purposes too. So I get that.
Yeah, that's an interesting problem. I mean, then you have fossil fuels versus safety issues, especially on those lower traveled roads or in the low country where there's a lot of washout.
But I will tell you, in our industry, in the sawmill industry, basically every piece of wood is used. It's not a case of, okay, we're going to cut a railway tie and all this on the side, because the railway tie is right down the center. This is going to waste. No, it doesn't. I mean, many of them use the waste that's on the ground to fuel their boilers for their dry kilns to dry the lumber that's going to Home Depot and Lowe's and all that. So there's very little waste at all in the wood industry. Or it goes to pulp for paper, or to Amazon to make their cardboard boxes. Just kidding. But we try to be extremely sustainable and use every bit of not waste any of the wood product at all.
That's fantastic. And that's one thing I do love about the wood industry too, growing up in the Midwest, where quite a bit of that was going on, to be able to see what else could be made out of wood. And as Ivan has shown us, the beautiful kinds of products that we can live with day to day that are very much luxury items made out of this rustic material. Ivan, how are you solving the shipping and receiving logistics issue of energy and waste materials?
Yeah, we're pretty guilty there, I'm afraid, because you must use cardboard boxes. We have to use very strong, double wall ones that are made, and unfortunately we wrap them in foam so they don't get damaged. What we do try to do, that we never waste any space in a box. We have every size box to take exactly 2 or 3 or 4 pieces. So we try not to waste in that way. But at the moment, I can't see any area where that we could avoid that. I think some companies are starting to recycle cardboard and to make recycle boxes. And we'd certainly buy those if we could, when it does exist and in the right sizes, etc. But yeah, that's a tough question. But I'm totally with you about the Amazon thing, and there should be some, policies set, local governments where we can do something about that.
Well, it's interesting, going back to that heritage idea again. I mean, there was a time when milkmen delivered milk in actual glass bottles, and they picked those bottles back up and refilled them and delivered them again. Same with even cloth diapers and things like that. So maybe that's a trend. And I guess speaking of trends, we're getting a little bit closer to the end of our session here. I wanted to know what kind of highlights each of you particularly sees, or even maybe a surprising innovation that's happening that you're seeing and excited about in the industry of sustainability within your field.
I can start. Well, there are a couple different things. There's what I'm seeing, and there's what I would hope to see in a few years. So what I'm seeing now is the outdoor furnishings market has never been hotter than it is before. And it was already starting to kind of go through the roof before 2020. And then 2020 came, and we're all at our homes and we want to be outside. And so a wonderful innovation that we're starting to see in outdoor furniture is people using recycled materials. So for example, there's a company called Polywood. There is not an ounce of wood in anything they make. It's all from recycled bottles. So there are just some great innovations that we're seeing. It's hard when you see a sector of the market that's about to grow and really expand. And I think one of the first things that can go by the wayside is sustainability, because people are they're wanting to jump on the bandwagon. What's out there? What can we use? Let's get in on this. And I feel like with the outdoor furnishings market, we are really starting to see people be very thoughtful, very mindful of recycling products, innovative ways to use things in new ways. So that is something that we're really starting to see. And again, I feel like these manufacturers are crafting a wonderful story to tell when they're selling their products. Also, outdoor heating elements, we're seeing that I mean, if you can get an outdoor fireplace right now for spring 2021, good luck. Hope you can get it, but it's really gone through the roof, and that's a great trend. Something that I'd like to see, and I don't know when we will see it, but one of the struggles that we have in the home furnishings industry is things ending up in landfills and having no chance of them ever being able to, be biodegradable or, and so, and I think when we talk about something like the Sustainable Furnishings Council that just won campaign, I know people hate paper straws. I don't like paper straws. But when you see how many plastic straws will just live on forever, it's terrible. And so people want to change their homes. They want to refresh their homes. They're watching HGTV. They want to make over. If there's a way for people to start making home furnishings that, like rugs or fabrics or things that could have some kind of biodegradable element. I know that's like crazy, but we put people on the moon, so somebody out there can start chipping away at this and figure it out. But I think that would be an incredible selling point, not just for the product, but for people to feel like, oh, you know what? I can make over my living room and do a new rug because this one isn't going to go to waste. It's going to dissolve and become wildflowers or something. I have no idea, but that's something I'd love to see. And I feel like somebody somewhere will eventually figure that out. For items that can't be made of wood or glass or things like that. I think that would be a great thing to see come down the pike.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love both of those points, and I want to carry that question to everyone else too. What are you seeing that's a trend, and what would you like to see become one? But I want to talk back about the outdoor spaces. The fact that we are moving our living room outdoors and that it took a pandemic to make that happen is just a perfect indication of how unhealthy we have been living and what the future holds for us if we continue these kinds of trends. And I love your point about how possible it should be, how possible it likely is to use waste material and recycle it into more lasting home products. I know there are lots of companies working on that right now. In fact, I'm working with a company right out of Denmark who's using post-consumer products like coffee grains and mycelium to create these products that will eventually decompose, but are lasting enough to live with us in our lives for as long as we want them to. To that point, Linda, can you tell us a little bit of a trend that you're seeing right now that's significant to sustainability in the home, and then what you would like to see going forward?
So interesting for normally hardwood, which is the trees that lose their leaves, cannot be sourced outside. You would not use that as siding on the exterior home or to live outside. But our industry is working on what we call thermally modified hardwood, and they basically take the wood and they cook it. And they change the makeup, the molecular makeup of the wood, and it can live outside. It's chemical resistant, it's decay resistant, and it makes the most gorgeous Adirondack chairs you've ever seen. Oh my gosh. It's expensive. It's not an easy thing to do, but they'll last forever. And I think I have some gentlemen in the industry that have actually made it for their own. One made a gorgeous porch swing, and he has had it for 8 years and literally not done anything to it. He has not painted it. He has not stained it. He has not wiped it down with anything. So there's not really specs yet for it to go into buildings, like the exterior of buildings, but it definitely can be used in furniture. And for outdoor living, it's amazing.
Amazing. Well, Shop Architect I think they did build a building out of burnt petrified wood a few years back, and it was very innovative at the time. But to be able to use that for exterior and outdoor furniture is incredible. I would love to see that piece.
Well, and they're using it a lot more over in Europe, because I have a sister organization, American Hardwood Export Council, that does what I do over in Europe and Asia, and they have accepted it into their building codes over there. So they're using it a lot more over there. The other thing that our industry is working on is, I don't know if you've seen the wood buildings and the softwood that goes into it's cross-laminated timber, and then they're using that for wood now. And the ideally what they want to get to is that it would be a building structural product, but on both sides would be a finished wood layer. And so on the floor in a building, when you lay that down as a structure product, the finished wood floor is already on top of it. So it would eliminate steps, but it would be right into the building codes, and it would be so much less expensive, and it's much healthier. The whole buildings are wood. They're up to 19 floors now. They do them. They're fire retardant. They've tested them. It's pretty amazing. So those are two new things we're working on as an industry. I think what I would like in the future, and I have to be addicted to what's on HGTV because I have to keep up with what's going on, but my guys just go nuts when they see all these painted white wood kitchens. Go nuts. So, but I see the design trend starting to change a little, because that's what happens after 6 or 7 years. We have to throw something else out there. So wood tones are becoming a lot more popular now, and what I love and is little by little becoming more popular is the wood deco walls. And they're solid wood, and they slap on with they're sticky, and you put them on, they're really great. And I think if people experimented with some of the colors that are out there, it's way better than painting the wall. It's really awesome. And it's
I'm gonna jump in because we just have a few minutes left, and we definitely want to give Ivan 2 minutes to just say something, because we will be wrapping up in about 4 minutes.
Yep. Sorry I ran out there. Amazon was at the door. I'm embarrassed to say.
Send back that packaging. Yeah, right. So Ivan, same.
I declined it. I declined.
So Ivan, and to that end about the wood, what what is the trend you're seeing that's so significant and innovative? And then what do you want to see going forward?
Well, I always have my eye out for another product that would be cork or wine barrels. Haven't seen anything lately, but we have started making furniture, and it was going to be released at the New York Now show in August, but that's going to be put off now till this year or later. Outdoor furniture, which does work if it's treated from the wine barrel staves, because we have an abundance of those from wine barrels. We found a great use for the tops. Plus, we're making ice buckets out of the staves, beautiful wood ice buckets and candelabras. So we're just trying to find more use for the sides of the barrel, which there is still an abundance of, that do end up in tips. At the moment, that's really what our,
Fantastic.
contribution to that is. And,
Well, to that end, what you mentioned that you would like to move forward with this same concept into other materials. Ideally, what would that material be? Are you thinking post-consumer product like what I mentioned before, coffee grinds and mycelium, or what are you, mushrooms even, things like that? What are you looking for?
for my purpose,
Well, like what you would like to see as another opportunity to develop this idea further.
I think it's using more woods that old wood from buildings, et cetera, to make it see a lot more products produced out of those. I think that's what I'm seeing. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, to wrap, I think we got several major trends here going on. We were talking about repurposing materials, outdoor furniture that ties us to biophilia and getting back to nature and incorporating nature into our living spaces to be healthier, including wood floors, manufacturing, and the sustainability of natural materials. Did I miss any trends there?
I'm not sure that you did. I think we have come to the end of an extremely enjoyable and informative conversation that probably could continue to go on. But in the last minute before we get cut off, I just want to thank everybody for joining us today at the New York Now Digital Talks. That, as a reminder, this session has been pre-recorded and it will be available on demand. And thank you to all of our panelists, Linda Jovanovic, Ivan Hull, Libby Langdon, and our moderator, Garrett Johnson. Be sure to connect with them in the digital market. And thank you all for spending this time with us today. Have a wonderful day and stay warm.
Thank you for putting it on.
Thanks so much.